Hi, everyone. Welcome to this lecture. It's about using the room, higher education pedagogical methods for empty classrooms. Uh, student active classrooms, is it a revolution for higher education educators or just evolution? The purpose of this lecture is to inspire and provide concrete suggestions on how university teachers can work with student activity, and especially how they can work in the student activity rooms that are being built at an increasing number of universities. The student active approach is on the rise, largely thanks to the pedagogical development work being done across our universities. And this has resulted in the vast majority of universities in Sweden, in particular, starting to build the classrooms that better enable student activity. Universities have long worked with student active pedagogy, but building and equipping rooms based on this pedagogical idea is new. In this way, active rooms don't mean a pedagogical revolution, but an evolution. The revolutionary thing is that we have become more aware of the pedagogical importance of space. Educators working in universities are developing spatial competence, as you can see in the study, for example, of Legion and his colleagues. As these rooms are built, more and more university teachers are asking for resources and literature that can help them create student active learning opportunities and utilize the possibilities of the new rooms. Many have gathered in network. In Sweden, we have the national network, Room for Learning. So we have collaboration between teachers at universities around the country who have wanted to share their experiences and their pedagogical approaches in student active rooms. My idea with this lecture is to provide inspiration for different types of teacher activities. The focus of this lecture is on the activities that students do. So how they do, why they do, not the actual course content that cover it. So not the what they do. So it does not have to be about your specific subject area, but instead you will be able to access the content based on the type of task or pedagogical problem you are facing. Um, let's talk about the importance of the room for teaching. Lecture halls have traditionally been built to make it easy for many students to see and hear the teacher lecturing. This is why many halls are called grade middle auditoriums, like cinema sitting. The technical equipment in the halls ranges widely, from a simple whiteboard to advanced audio and video systems that may even allow the lecture to be broadcast to students sitting in another hall or in another location. What these rooms have in common is that it's easy to focus on the teacher and hear what she or he is saying. It's often more difficult to hear students speaking, for example, asking questions. And it's difficult for students to collaborate with each other, discuss with each other. These rooms are often supplemented by smaller rooms equipped with tables and chairs that can be arranged in a cinema style, uh, a horseshoe shape, or other formations. These rooms usually contain a computer and whiteboard for the teacher and or a lectern of some kind. Perhaps there is an overhead projector in a corner. In this lecture, I use the collective name student active classrooms for the new type of classrooms that began to be built at Swedish universities in the latter part of the 2010s. The classrooms can have several different names: ALC, hybrid classrooms, flex classrooms, or laboratory classrooms, to name a few. Um, Regardless of the name, the rooms have in common it's students and their activity that are in focus rather than the teacher and their teachers and their role. This doesn't mean that the teacher is passive or has no importance for what happens in the room. Quite the opposite. Um, I will clarify that a little later. An important inspiration for the classrooms being built in Sweden had been the emergence of so-called active learning classrooms, ALC, in the US and Australia. In these classrooms, students are seated at round tables so that they can see each other and are given equal sitting around the tables. Like there is no high seat. Each table usually has a shared collaboration area. It can be a whiteboard, a smart screen, a large screen that students can connect the computer, mobile phone, or tablet. The teacher is placed in the middle of the room and usually has a smaller workspace than usual. There are no lecturns and a writing board that is the teacher's. Instead, the teacher has an overview of the groups working and is approximately equally close to all groups. In rooms equipped with monitors, the teacher often has access to a control console that allows him or her to control what is shown or shared on the screens. The teacher screen or a specific working group screen. It may also be the case that each table has local access, just local to its own screen. So it depends on installations. The purpose of these classrooms is to create physical learning environments that are adapted to the forms of knowledge and skills that students need today, and a pedagogy that supports that learning. This differs from the requirements that were set when many of today's classrooms were created. Now, I am going to talk about the pedagogical theories behind student active rooms. Well, since the 1919s, research in higher education teaching was advocated a student-centered perspective that focuses on how students learn, rather than a teacher-centered perspective that focuses on the teacher's efforts. The student-centered perspective is now recommended in the Common European Guidelines for Good Teaching and in the University Chancellor's Office's Quality System of Sweden in particular. The student-centered perspective can be described as learning, teaching, and assessment, focusing on students' knowledge, students' needs, knowledge needs, and stimulating students' engagement and motivation. It therefore not only about focusing on how students learn, but also about starting from what students already know, what they need, and what to learn next. The starting point is that for students to create deep knowledge, they need intrinsic motivation for learning, a desire to deepen their knowledge and understanding, commitment to their own learning. A prerequisite for learning, according to this view, is that teaching is linked to the student's life work and is experienced as relevant and useful to them. In accordance with ideas about constructive alignment, which you read in Big's study, it's important that learning activities are related to the course design as a whole, to its content, in particular learning objectives, learning activities, and examinations, but also to the needs of specific student groups. A student-centered perspective also advocates that students take their own responsibility and are given the opportunity to take an active part in their teaching, that they become active co-creators rather than being passive recipients of teacher-filtered material. It's in accordance with so-called fledgling pedagogy. Active learning is about processing, interpreting, and reflecting on course material independently, individually, or in groups with other students. Student active rooms aim to stimulate, enable interaction, reflection, dialogue, and collaboration between students and teachers. They take their starting point in student active learning, or we say student active pedagogy, whose basic idea is that what's important is what the students do, and that activity is a key to in-depth learning. The simple starting point is that it's important for the students learning, whether they sit and listen to a teacher, whether they individually read about the theory, or whether they are allowed to reflect and solve tasks together in a group. What students are tasked with doing during a course or during a specific learning opportunity, uh, workshop, for example, is thus of decisive importance for what knowledge and skills they take with them. Student activity in itself does not necessarily lead to learning. Um, Another pedagogical idea behind student active classrooms is to specifically promote collaborative learning, which means that students learn by working and taking on tasks together with others. According to socio-cultural learning theory, students should be encouraged to integrate with each other, develop knowledge in dialogue, and together relate their knowledge to phenomena in the world around them. The learning environment in student active rooms is specifically designed to enable such group-based learning processes through roundtables, shared writing surfaces, and shared screens. It also encourages dialogue-based learning. Um, the stated purpose of teaching in student active rooms is often to equip students for a future professional life by allowing them to practice working in groups, leading and resolving conflicts in groups. This can be done, for example, by working with different methods for distributing roles in group work. And another characteristic of learning activities in student active classrooms is that they are often based on an investigative approach. For example, this is called problem-based learning or case-based learning, or let's say team-based learning. And here a group is given a common task, problem, or case to solve together. For example, it can involve mapping parts of an ecosystem, or analyzing a conflict, or finding solutions to a crime problem, or handling a client case, or diagnosing a patient. The idea is that the student group collaborates by using each other's knowledge and skills, that they both get to teach other students what they know by sharing their experiences and knowledge, learn from each other, and actively listen to other students of the group. Um, hmm. Another type of learning that enabled in student active classrooms is reflective learning. Um, this occurs when students collectively summarize and visualize the group's knowledge development and learning process on shared writing surfaces or shared screens. This helps to increase students' reflection on their own learning and learning process. And in its turn, it develops their metacognitive competence, so to say. And higher education educators, teachers working in student active classrooms are also often inspired by what's called the inverted classrooms, or we say flipped classroom in modern terms. And this involves a reverse approach to the traditional one, in that students prepare for a learning activity. For example, by reading course literature, answering reflection questions, watching a recorded lecture, or listening to a podcast, and then bring that knowledge into the student active course. So in this way, the flipped classroom therefore is a form of blended learning. that involves varying learning activities. For example, by combining classroom activities on campus with various digital elements such as wikis, podcasts, recorded lectures, or quizzes. In the classroom, time is used for students based on the knowledge they have with them and with the support of the teacher to work actively, for example, by discussing and solving different tasks together. This promotes student activity and frees up time for the teacher to interact and dialogue with the students, to deepen the material and provide feedback on what the students have learned. Well, what does the research say about the results of student active classrooms? Let's see. Several studies show positive results from student active classrooms. Uh, Students are more active, they say. Students perform better on exams. They experience increased motivation and engagement. And students share their knowledge with their classmates to a greater extent. Studies that have compared the outcome when the same course has been given by the same teacher for two groups of students, one in a traditional classroom and one in student active classroom. So that kind of studies have shown that the study results were better for the group that was in the student active classroom, and that student engagement increased in the course given in a student active classroom compared to the same course given in a traditional classroom. Um, that student active classrooms result in students getting better study results and increased engagement is not surprising, given that studies have shown that student active pedagogy has positive effects on this. And the students from homes that are not used to studying benefit more from student active pedagogy than students from homes that are used to studying. Small American study attempted to separate pedagogy from learning environment by comparing three groups of first-year computer science students taught in three different types of classrooms. One, a traditional classroom where teachers gave traditional lectures. Second was a traditional classroom where the teacher taught using student active methods. And the third form was an active in the active learning classroom, ALC, where the teacher taught using student active methods. The result was that students taught using student active methods performed better, regardless in which room, regardless of whether they were in an active classroom or traditional classroom. And the fact that research shows that the throughput of students, their participation coming to school, um, throughput of students on courses with student activation elements is increasing. It's something that's important, not only for the individual teacher, but also for universities in general, universities and colleges in general. For higher education institutions, increased throughput means better resource utilization and increased compensation. It's therefore important to know which factors can affect the throughput and student chances of completing their education. A possible method for universities and colleges to increase throughput could therefore be to build more student active classrooms that encourage student active pedagogy. However, a student active classroom is not a guarantee that the teaching conducted in the classroom will be student active, but rather requires that the teacher base his teaching on a student-centered pedagogy. That's the most important aspect. Interviews with teachers in student active classrooms have shown that some teachers who have chosen to place their courses in student active classrooms have a teacher-centered view of teaching, like subject-centered view of teaching, and thus also in student active classrooms conduct teaching activities that are based on knowledge transfer and teacher activity rather than student activity. It's therefore not enough to build student active classrooms. Teachers also need opportunity to further their education and adapt their course offerings to the new environments. Overall, previous studies support the assumption that student active classrooms have positive effects on student activity levels, positive effects on their performance, provided that teachers use student active, student-centered pedagogy. This argues for placing the parts of teaching that rely on student activity in a classroom designed for this purpose. Of course, many teachers who are novice in this work forms, they can wonder, does ALC work in language teaching, for example, or history teaching, or maths teaching? Do you have to be a tech-savvy as a teacher? Yes and no. With concrete content and good planning for collaborative work, you can absolutely work in ALC with good results. You don't have to be a tech whiz. You're just interesting. It's the main thing, it's the main point that you get interested in trying out new pedagogical tools and dare to let go of classroom control. That's why I uh, um, will share my experiences here and present two cases. The first case is about creating closeness. It's activity-based learning about interview methodology. Uh, uh, During the ALC activity described in this case, students practice the craft of interviewing as a method for interviewing, analyzing, compiling, and presenting interview material. ALC creates conditions for active learning to supplement and reinforce previously learned methodological literature, visualize the task, create expanded opportunities for discussion, reflection, and closeness in teaching. And the course was, for this case, to pedagogy C level within the program behavioral science for undergrad level. And we have approximately 20 students. And it's a group. And yeah, 6 round tables with 6 seats, each with laptop we had in the room, ILC room, and whiteboard, a monitor, centrally placed a teacher's table with the option of controlling projection on a whiteboard or canvas management system, where we have different kinds of links or instructions, etc. And recommended aids, recording equipment, such as mobile phones, and time, introductory session twice, 45 minutes, goes here, quarter break, and regular seminar workshops 4 hours. So the goal of the LC activity was to prepare students for empirical collection for future independent work by practicing the craft of interviewing as a method. The ALC activity can be linked to the course learning objectives, which are about demonstrating knowledge and understanding within the main area of pedagogy. Of course, including knowledge of its scientific basis and methods, but also demonstrating the ability to verbally and in writing account for and discuss information, problems, solutions, and dialogue with different groups. During a campus week, students got to use their theoretical knowledge in practice. During home study weeks, students had to process course literature on interviewing as a method. The activity begins with a short lecture, it took approximately 30 minutes. And also a review based on the method literature. Then the students work in groups of 3 in each small groups to design a few interview questions. So this is a task in the workshop. The students choose a theme of interest, for example, the challenges and opportunities of distance learning. Then they interview each other and use their mobile phones for that to record the interviews. The interview work take place in the room, but sometimes the students go outside to record the interview. This is followed by transcribing, compiling, and analyzing on site in ALC. The students transcribe together. Sometimes they project the work files directly on the group's whiteboard in order to visualize the work of thematization. When the work in the groups is complete, Each group presents the uh, schematized results group by group. And in this way, the students can learn from each other's analysis. The students can choose the presentation form and tools, usually in the form of PowerPoint, and it's up to the students. The students also bring reflections on the work, for example, challenges or opportunities into the joint discussion. To create good conditions, all surfaces in the room are used. The introductory review is done like a traditional lecture, so about 30 minutes. The lecture images are shown on the screen at the like slides at the front, but can also be projected on the whiteboard at each group area. Using the entire room helps students to be active during the lecture in hives and small group discussion. These activities are important elements in a student active classroom to create variety in teaching. The lecture images, or slides, which are otherwise usually shown at the front of the room, are suddenly close to the students. Students are mobile in the ALC room, and that increases the proximity between them in two ways. Within the individual group areas, student activity is stimulated because students can approach each other and have discussion. Between groups, proximity increases because groups can move around to talk to each other or ask each other questions about the group's work that is projected on the whiteboard. Even as a teacher, I am mobile in the ALC room. I can, for example, during the introduction of the session or with the whole group, meet the student groups working directly at the tables and direct my attention to a specific group or a specific student. Through questions and reflections from the students, I have experienced that the proximity is appreciated. And the arrangement can, in turn, be beneficial for the students' learning. Students are allowed to work together and then present their results to each other in groups. Work is usually done in study groups. In this way, students can take part in all groups' results, how they have worked and how the work has worked. During the presentation, the focus in ALC shifts from group to group. By seeing each other's analysis, students can reflect their own group's analysis against that of others in line with what the research laureates have argued. So laureates shows in his study from 2013 on collaborative learning according to the conversational framework. The collaborative element reinforces new perspectives, clarifies them on different solutions and creates conditions for learning. So the design of the ALC activity creates expanded, expanded opportunities for discussion and reflection. Well, I have reflected a lot, both me and my colleagues, and asked us, we have evaluated how did it go. The ALC room served to visualize different possible solutions to the task, which was appreciated by the students. I experienced that most students found it fun to work in the LC room. I have seen this in that they are active, curious, and mobile in the room, and that working energy is created through variation. They have the opportunity to move around, for example, to interview each other, discuss thematization work, and take part in other groups' work or visualization of the work. From a pedagogical perspective, I see that the work energy creates conditions that benefit the students' learning. Even so, some parts of the activity did not require being in the ALC. I see great advantages in working there with the different elements, including the lecture. Even so, carpeting and absorbing panels are used in the LC room to damp the sound in the room, dampen the volume. There are students who have difficulty concentrating in the environment. Uh, During group work and preparatory discussions, groups of students found other group rooms where they could work and then return during the presentation. Yeah. What I have learned from these experiences, lessons learned. Um, yeah, my lessons cover three areas: technology, planning, and variation. While teaching can be varied in the ALC room without using technology, teaching in the ALC room with the help of technology requires a sense of security with it. I have worked a lot with the idea of collaborating with a student. In teaching, I think it has been appreciated, and it has turned it out that many students are not that comfortable with technology either. I have borrowed the room during free time to test it. This is something that I could do more often, for example, with colleagues, to get started using the room even more. During the time that I have worked on using the room, the technical support at the university has developed. For example, there is now the possibility of getting technical support during the teaching session if needed. Regarding the planning, yeah, um, planning is also an important part. ALC rooms are few and in high demand uh, in the campus. So I need to plan well in advance. I need books the room, think through my pedagogical planning regarding both um, prioritization and the design of the teaching. In the pedagogical design, I try to make advantage of the proximity in working with the students. Since the room itself invites group work, ALC teaching may require shorter whole class reviews to stop in the teaching activities and focus on the content. More group assignments and opportunities to ask questions may also be needed. Being able to developing my teaching on site in ALC together with the students feels important and necessary. Even so, there are students who, due to various circumstances, cannot cope with the environment in the room. I can use the room to get close to the students in student active teaching activities that offer variation in teaching and create good conditions for activity-based learning. Specifically, my teaching role is affected in several different ways when it comes to teaching in ALC. These ways can be described as proximity to the students, flexibility, and variation in teaching and awareness of lesson planning. Teaching in the LC room means that I can get much closer to the students even during lectures and briefings. Of course, we can have variants. um, Variants of the activity. There are many possible variants of the activity. The introductory part, consisting of a lecture, could be given by the students. Each student group could use their group space to make an introductory presentation. The ALC activity could also be planned for distance learning with some student groups in person, so physical attending, and some students participating via video conferencing tools. Yes. Regarding the case two, you can listen my presentation next in the next video. So part two, case two.